I just want to start with saying welcome once again. My name is Cassie. I'm the CMX Connect host here in Denver, Colorado. Like I said, I'm just excited to connect with you all, no matter where you're phoning in from. It's been a while since I've done a virtual event for CMX. We do have some guidelines for you today. Number one is just close any distracting applications. I think we all know how easy it can be to kind of get lost in our tabs while trying to tune in for a virtual event. So if you can take that step, I think you'll definitely get the most out of this event as possible. Use the chat box to ask questions, leave comments, and connect with one another. Feel free to, drop in your LinkedIn profile, social profiles, whatever you may like so you all can stay in touch even after the event. And finally, just grab your favorite snack or drink, depending on what time zone you're in. This might be your lunchtime, snack time. Just settle in and get comfy. So if you're unfamiliar with CMX, our events and these Connect events are just all about harnessing the incredible power of community. We have over 60 chapters all around the world. You'll see some highlighted here on this map. I included a picture of our Denver chapter here in our last meetup. So if you're not already a member of CMX in your local city, or you're not sure if there is a chapter, just head to the website and you can check that out, sign up for the chapter emails and stay up to date. But you can also just check out all the virtual events that are definitely still going on that you can tune in from no matter where you are. Our goals, with these events are to, of course, connect. We want you to meet at least one other awesome person. Hopefully you can learn and get one actionable thing that you can implement today. And also with these events, we're just looking to advocate and to continue to grow the community industry. If you aren't aware, we're using Bevy for these events. It's a software company that's in the business of building and scaling in-person communities. Awesome. So I am really excited for today and just confident that you will walk away with some really valuable takeaways surrounding award ceremonies, both virtual and in person. A lot of people are thinking about or already gathering in person again when it's safe and where it's safe to do so. So we'll definitely touch on both facets of those award ceremonies. I know for me, planning an award ceremony is top of mind for my role as a community manager at Newsbreak, and I hadn't seen a CMX event done around the topic, at least in a good amount of time. So I thought it'd be fun to gather and chat about, and was excited to have some people raise their hand to help offer their insights and personal learnings from their work doing these types of events at their companies. And so I think again that you'll get a lot out of this, and I'm excited for them to share. We'll start with a moderated Q&A. We have some questions that we'll touch on, and if we have time, we will open it up for audience Q&A. We will, cut this off at an hour, but again, just gonna pack it all in and make sure that you all get the most out of it as possible. So right now, I'm going to turn it over to my fellow moderator today, Ilker, and he's just going to introduce himself, and then we'll toss it over to our panelists.
Thank you, Cassie, and hello, everyone. It's great to be here and in the presence of Cassie and some really cool panelists. My name is Ilker Kansel. I am a community management, building and strategy consultant. So no surprises there that I am a community professional, just like the people here. I'm also the founder and one of the co-hosts of the CMX Connect Istanbul chapter. So on behalf of them, we're really excited that Denver is actually holding this, and we can't be more excited to help. So in terms of awards and in terms of community work connected to it, I led Google's communities for a couple of years in Turkey, Central Asia, and Caucasus. And around that time, there has been many opportunities to reward, to host, to recognize the efforts of the community builders. And that's obviously followed in my professional community building work that followed after that as well. So it's an important topic for me. I'm sure it's an important topic for any community professional, because recognition is a great part of what we do. So I'm really, really excited to talk about this with Cassie and our fellow panelists. So I'd like to turn over to Drew, who's next in line in the screen that I'm seeing in front of me.
Great, awesome. Well, it's so great to be here and sharing the virtual stage with everybody. Really looking forward to getting to talk with everybody today about awards. But a little bit of background on me. I'm currently the Senior Manager of User Community Programs at Zendesk. And that's kind of a newer title. I've only been there since July, and our team is really growing. I believe there's about 7 of us now on the community team at Zendesk. And so it's a really exciting time to be there, and we're doing a lot of cool things. So excited to share, my example here that we had around Community Day and our big event that we just had last month, award ceremony that we had during Community Day. But my background really is in kind of all things marketing. I have been in a marketing position since about 2009 in the ski industry for a while, then moved on to startups and technology, eventually got into telecommunications, cybersecurity, and now I'm at Zendesk. And along that path, I've kind of done a lot of different things, but really found the community and really kind of that customer advocacy piece in the last 6 years, and have kind of doubled down on focusing on that. I really enjoy that. But like I said, happy to share some examples and what I've learned along the way with you today. But I'll turn it over to the next panelist.
Hey friends, my name is Blue. I am the global head of community at Pexels. Pexels is a royalty-free stock photography site and video site as well. So if you're looking for any sorts of images for your marketing materials or social media, emails, etc., website, you can go on there. And we have a extremely talented, creative, and generous community of photographers around the world who provide all of their imagery for free for you to use. I've been at Pexels now coming up on a year, which I think pandemic years are a lot faster than regular years, it feels. It has been a blur. Previous to Pexels, I spent a little bit over 8 years at Yelp. It's a little startup. I don't know if anybody's heard of Yelp. It's a small little company. Did really great stuff there on the community team, and learned a lot about community and all sorts of things. We were doing hyper local communities there versus the global community, which is what I'm focusing on now, and 2 very different types of communities, but really cut my teeth and hone some skills over at Yelp that are helping me now on the global scale. So super excited to speak a lot about Yelpies today. Yelpies being the award show that we did for community members that were review writers and sharing photos and supporting local businesses, and we were able to scale that award show style concept to I think it's in 40 or 50 cities across the US now at this point, maybe more. And it's been a really successful program over at Yelp. So we'll be talking a little bit about online and offline versions of the Yelpies. And I'll kick it over to our last panelist, Blake.
That's awesome. Love those photos. It's great to be on a panel with Drew and Blue. I've heard so many great things about you. And Ilker is always definitely great. So I'm Blake, also a CMX Connect host in transit, working to move to Vegas, Las Vegas. It's kind of weird. I started out doing community awards back in biggest challenge then was just on this giant stage in front of thousands having to read a teleprompter, right? So everything else was easy, but that teleprompter was like no joke. And I think getting started out for me with that was I had a career. It really helped me shape everything and learn like a entire awards thing like end to end. And then Tiffany Schlane from Webby Awards had like workshops back in the day, like teaching like community professionals how to do awards. So that was amazing. And then pretty much over the years had like 10 years agency life and then big company life at BMC before Matt Laurencia took over Texas Instruments. These days I'm director of community at Net Data. So just about every different style of model, budget, virtual, in-person, having to scale for global teams, that type of deal. And then on the like recipient side, I think the most interesting one is like for like when you're in a film fest jury. And so then it's like you get flown out to an exotic location like Ilker's like European tour, go to fancy stuff, but then you have to watch like 50 to 100 films. And then as a jury, you have to decide on something that you're going to select. And knowing like when you get to that jury press conference with the media, you're going to get like hounded for like why you selected stuff. So it's kind of good to, even as a community professional, just great to also have other types of volunteer type activities to also shape that I can bring into the excited for the panel today. Over to you, Cassie.
Awesome. Thank you. And I just realized my camera wasn't on for that whole first part. So here I am. Sorry about that. And it's good to see all of your faces as well. Awesome. So thanks for your introductions. As hopefully our attendees can see, we have a lot to chat about. And I really love how all of you all have different perspectives and even coming from different industries. I think there's a lot of different ways that you're probably looking at these awards and hopefully takeaways for everyone. So let me start off with Drew. You mentioned, Zendesk just had their first award ceremony incorporated into your community day. What were some of the key facets that you and your team were looking at that you knew you wanted to make sure were included, in this award ceremony?
Yeah, so for the award ceremony itself, it was going to be towards the end of the day, and our day-long event was around 3 hours, 3.5. There's a lot of content, multiple tracks, a lot of stuff going on. So for us, we just wanted it to be kind of short and sweet, to be honest. We wanted it to be kind of faceted and have like some different multimedia in there as well. So it wasn't just me being up there on stage presenting. And so we incorporated a lot of video in our award ceremony too. So we only had 8 awards. It was the first time we ever did anything like this. And what we did that I think worked pretty well was I went around virtually, of course, and talked to employees and wanted them to talk about the winners of our awards. And so I just recorded them talking into their camera about all the great stuff that these individuals for us and the company and their impact on the organization. Because I'm sure with a lot of others out there, the community is, and of course, a very public thing, and a lot of our employees, they know who these folks are because these are the most engaged or whatever it might be that the award in a way. And so I thought that was a pretty cool piece. So I would kind of tee up what we're doing here, the award itself, why it's important, go over the finalists and who they are, and then I'd kind of send it over to the employee that was on the mic talking about how great this person is and what it means to them. So I thought that was a kind of cool way to go about it, and also keep it pretty tight. Again, we wanted to keep it short, and so we didn't want to open up Pandora's box with like, oh my gosh, trying to shoot it over to the award winner and have them have some technical issues or whatever it be. And then, what do we do? So we were trying to keep it kind of short and sweet, again, with those 8 awards. And that was a good way for us to do that.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Blue, what about you? Are there any other additional elements that you think of when planning an award ceremony, either the Yelpies or if you were going to iterate, at your new job at Pexels?
Yeah, so I am focused on user generated content style communities. So, it's folks that are for the most part, it's like a hobby or a part of their life that they like to participate in. And a lot of them, as we all know, there's always going to be that upper echelon of community members that are the super users and the really super duper active members. And um, when I'm crafting, what an award show would look like for those folks, it's always just thinking about the diversity in the categories that you're going to give out. So you're always going to have your super users, and then you'll have your super duper users, which is like that 0.2%. But that 0.2% might win every category because they are the most active. So that's something I saw at Yelp, where it was like a handful of community members could have won every no brainer award, right? Which would have been like photographer of the year, reviewer of the year, commenter of the year, stuff like that. So then starting to think of different categories. So, okay, a lot of these folks are veterans. Can we do like a rookie of the year award? So that way we give the newer folks a little bit of love. Some of them, are more focused on writing reviews about local businesses, which is not a super known category on Yelp. So let's really celebrate those people that are digging deep into these under reviewed categories. So that's something I always approach it with. And what I'm looking at now at Pexels, the same thing, right? How many different types of categories can we do? Can we do photography for styles? And we'll have landscapes, we'll have portraits, we'll have abstract, even going into like the type of photography that the machine that you're using to take photos, right? So can we do cell phone photography versus camera photography, and video? How do all these different categories, so that you can get into every nook and cranny of the community. And then everything with the overarching, my ethos for community on the event side is always not planning events, but planning experiences. Anybody can throw an event, but like, how do you give them like a very unique experience? And that's where I get really excited about all the bells and whistles that you could do for an event. So I've always structured my as like a legit award show, where we read off the nominees, there's a drum roll, there's this tension, the person finds out they win, they come up, they grab their award, they're crying. It's a beautiful moment. So I always think about that, and translating that to virtual last year was really interesting. But we were able to do it. We had a DJ that was providing music, and then he would provide the sound effects. So as I read off the people, he would do like the drum roll, and then he would do the audience like clapping, canned clapping, just to give a little bit more of flavor to a virtual award show. So yeah, that's kind of how I structured things. And as Cassie mentioned, I'm thinking of those things now at Pexels, and how can we create something really special for this community.
Awesome. You touched on a couple of things there, but I think one is like the other category kind of thing. I think a lot of times it is easy to kind of gamify some awards, because all of us are probably focused, at least in part, on like contributions to the community. So it's easy to say like, oh, this person posted the most, whether it's user generated content or, a customer support type thing, or even just supporting each other. But yeah, are there other categories any of you all have seen that kind of stand out to you as being more like outside the box and more almost special in a way, because it's maybe recognizing people that aren't necessarily the super obvious, just the people you see plastered all over, your communities?
Yeah, we had one that I wanted to incorporate our Zendesk values into the award ceremony. So we did have some of those engagement ones that you mentioned, but another one that was a little outside of the box, but is a core value for us, is to be humbledent, which is a made up word, but it's all about being humble and confident. And someone in our community, his name's Brandon, he completely, he's a great person, really, really good professional, really knows his stuff. But he demonstrated being humbledent this whole year. And so, as our of creating this community experience and community award show, I wanted to make sure to bring in our values and bring in an example like that, to your point, to to not only reward those that are, really answering questions and being really active and helping create articles and stuff like that, but doing something else outside of maybe the community engagement piece itself.
Awesome. Are there any others?
Yeah, I had two that I was really really excited with. The first time was the Yelp Time Achievement Award. So this was for a veteran who, maybe as you spend time in the community. When you first join the community, you're super active, and you're going really crazy on your contributions. But after 10 years, maybe you're not as active as you were your first year. But those people are the pillars of the community, right? They helped build the community. They were there from the beginning. So the very first Yelpies that I hosted, I noticed that there was one gentleman who had these insane lifetime contributions, but that year in specific wasn't their best banner year or anything. So we created the Yelp Time Achievement Award to really recognize that one person every year who is like a pillar of the community. And that became a tradition every year. We would spray paint that one gold, so it was a really nice, a little more special than all the other awards. It was like very special to me and also special to the community. We had an employee at Yelp who had a horrible accident and passed away. But when she passed away, everybody said that she had this sparkle, right? Like she was spreading the sparkle. And to keep her memory alive, we created the Colleen Burns Spread the Sparkle Award. So every year that person was actually handpicked by me. And it was somebody who I thought, Drew talked about the values, somebody who lived the values of Yelp, but also lived life how Colleen lived it, where it was like this exuberant, love life, super passionate about life in general. And every year that person would be handpicked and they would win that award. So those were two little touches that we were able to do that were not based on numbers, not based on even votes. It was kind of a gut feeling more than anything.
On my side, so for the award categories, like when you're planning, usually what you want to avoid where everything's like entirely quantitative, right? So then it's just like, as Blue mentioned, it's almost like in the same people getting awards every year. But then for your award categories themselves, dividing up and balance, like how many is going to be staff driven awards and kind of like what those criteria are. Are you going to have like judges? And then you can also basically, in some models that I've worked with, have audience awards, right? Where the audience basically gets to vote. And then separately, like with community members, you can have award categories where you actually assign out community members to come up with an award category and that they select it, or you have a working group of community members that get to do it. And then there's two other things that we also like to sprinkle in that their own form of like social juice and social currency is letting community members present awards to other people, right? Especially like where they have existing connections. So it's not just all staff like doing it. And then for the ceremony itself, generally like looking at a specific theme. So we are giving awards, but it's a great time to talk about that community journey for like the past 12 years, like whether it's an intro or video. And one way that we've typically broken up the kind of monotony of here's the next person speaking and accepting all that stuff, 2 to 3, maybe more sometimes, community members just tell a story, right? They didn't win anything, but just telling some meaningful or impactful story, right? So kind of have some audience, community participation, like voting, and then audience category awards where they select it, and then separately where you actually let community members present very specific things or in specific stories, get to tell that story on the biggest stage. So those are just some of the things.
Yeah, I really like all of that. And I think that brings up, oh, sorry, did I cut someone off?
Not really. I
Go
was
for it.
just going to say I fully support what Blake is saying about the trying to do away with the numeric things when it comes to selecting award categories or let's say award nominations. It's very difficult to then quantify in a way the support that any community member who's up for an award in terms of the support that they have done to the other people, because this is what the community is about. So it actually falls into what Richard Millington calls into the engagement trap. So that could be quantified, as Blake would say, an award category, selection trap. So perhaps it's actually a very good, a wise move to ask the community members to select fellow community members to be up for an award or win an award, or to be recognized about their efforts.
Yeah, I really like that idea. And I think if you go that route, one thing from that and then some other stuff that Blake mentioned is it definitely takes time. Like, if you're going to involve the community, if you're going to get their input, kind of, even Emily already asked a question about ramping up excitement. Like, it's not something you can necessarily throw together, in a few weeks. So I think that's a question that I have for you all is like, how long do you think it takes to plan? Like, when should you start planning? And I think, like, at Yelp, I know that the awards always happen at the end of the year because it was kind of like the end of the year recap of all the contributions. But, Drew did his in November for like Community Day. Like, if someone wants to do this and is like, oh, I can't plan this before the end of the year, what are some other like kind of reasons to celebrate your community maybe anytime in the year? Like, what could those be? And then, yeah, how long should folks start planning this out? Someone mind taking that first?
My gut reaction, having just been through this, is like double the amount of time you think it's going to take. Because it takes longer than you think. And so, we honestly could have used a little extra more time for our entire event, let alone just the session that was the award show. Moving forward to next year, because this is something that we want to do every year, is we will be taking much longer for the entire event itself and the award show too, because I wanted to bring in more voices into the community award ceremony and make sure that there was more of like a people's choice award section that people could vote on. And I think we've touched on that already, and I know CMX, you guys do a great job of that too. So I really wanted to bring that participation in to build up that excitement and that engagement over the course of the few months leading up to the event or the award ceremony. But the nuts and bolts of it was just like, we couldn't do it. We didn't have time. So, getting employees and getting some people involved in that way was really cool. But yes, make sure you're giving yourself way more time than you probably need. So like for us moving forward for this year or for 2022, we're probably going to take the better part of like 6 months to really like think about it and be very, diligent and make sure that, we're just not moving too fast, and it just makes it easier on us. Yeah, we're going to take much longer next year. That was a big learning from this past event.
Say like on my side, it's usually like January is like where you start that awards planning, and it kind of depends on your company if you have like an awards committee that's made up of staff or like fellow customers or partners, things like that. But if you don't, it's like having like a who's that tiger team, like smaller team of like cross-functional people that you have, and like strategic, where you can start to brainstorm and get everybody's ideas, start early, because really what you need for your overall like award ceremony, that's the North Star for the year that you're building towards. So it doesn't just feel like, with a lot of teams, it's like Thanksgiving and November hits in the US, they're like, uh-oh, we better do our award show. What is it? Let's figure it out. But when you can have the whole year to do it and work together with cross-functional teams, community members, you start planning everything out as the kind of the North Star. But then for like the customer journey, like that we look for community members, how do we enrich that experience? So the other part is like the nurture stream, like where we're keeping people engaged in that flywheel. How do we keep them coming back? And so part of that, it's like, where do you dole out the rewards and awards, like the right place at the right time? You don't give a Tesla at the first thing to Ilker when he does. Are you going to give him on the second one, like a yacht, a private jet? And so then you think of like your give out like maybe monthly community awards that then ladders into an annual stuff. And then you can have like smaller ones like daily shout outs or like just little aha stuff where it doesn't really have a clear category. Like at Salesforce, they had the golden hoodies and no one was always sure like what they were doing, but kind of like a whole spectrum of stuff across the year, whether it's like daily, weekly, monthly, where we can kind of basically give out stuff in the nurture stream to do it. But then it's like, what is the flagpoles in the tent that will ladder into an overall annual awards thing? And so for some, the monthly awards that you do might have categories that roll up into it. But it's really just like that yearly planning that goes into everything.
Yeah, I agree with whatever time you think it's going to take you to plan, probably double that. And especially if it's your first one or even your second one, I think once you get a really good system, things can move a lot faster, depending on your support team as well. Who all is involved. I guess that could be a good and a bad. If there's too many people involved, maybe go slower. But on average, we were probably planning our events out, the Yelpies in particular, about 4 months in advance. 3 to 4 months in advance, and that included like securing a venue. And this was an in-person, it was usually the biggest event of the year, so it was a very particular type of venue that we needed, and used to have it needed a stage, and all of that stuff obviously takes a lot of time to find and do. And then the actual like award winners were usually chosen like the week of, because again, it was contribution based, so we wanted all of those contributions to count, because people were very vigilant and they would say, hey, I had more reviews than that person, what's going on? It's like, well, it ended on this day, this is the final day of tallying. So at Pexels, I found that I'm going to need a little bit more engineering support. So like this year, we weren't able to do anything for the end of the year, because there is like engineering support that needs to be built. And if we want to do some sort of like voting system or, thinking of different ways that we're going to structure it, would require dev help. And, that is a precious resource at any startup. So we'll probably be doing awards next year. But if you're not tied into like an end of the year or, contribution based or numbers based, you can do it more so as a recognition. I wouldn't recommend doing Q4 just because there is so much stuff happening in Q4 that it's so hard to, put something else in there. So ideally, I would love to do stuff like in June, when usually things are a little easier and calmer, and then you get that big spike. And then I think that the question was like, how do you ramp up excitement? I'm assuming excitement for the community. And I would do a whole rollout of this. So we announce the venue, we announce the date, people get excited. A week later, we announce the nominees, and then we announce most of the categories. People get excited. The next week after that, we announced like the voted on categories. So now this is a whole nother batch of categories. So you get another spike in excitement, and then we open up the RSVPs. And then, at that point, we're 2 weeks away from the event. So everything has kind of led to it. And yeah, I would do that every year, kind of leading up to the event, to make sure people were super pumped for it.
Blake's getting generous with the yacht and the private jet. So as they say in New York, I'll take him. So, but anyway, one thing that I would like to add is building on the great things that Lewis said. It's important to start early, not only because of the team and the preparations, but also from the community members side. So we, as the community members, we tend to forget that the community members, obviously, they have to perform to earn the recognition, and they have to learn. Then they have to know the expectations, the criteria, the voting system as early as possible. One of the things that I would say, let's say, many of us are slightly guilty of is to announce the awards and then say that the awards are going to be given because of this and this and this, where the community members, they just have no chance of performing, so to speak, or to try and attempt to get the awards. So that's the reason why perhaps it starts, as Blake has been saying, at the 1st of January, because you have to come up with a skeleton system of, the voting arrangements and the criteria and everything else. Communicate that very transparently, cleanly, in detail to all the community members, and preferably just leave them in a permanent place where they can just take a peek at every day when they want them. So I see this as very important, because there's been some community members who've been very unhappy because they would have acted otherwise if they knew before.
Yes, I think those are great points. And I think, it sounds like everyone here is working towards or already has made something annual. And I think that's even great. Hopefully your members are staying active year after year, and then it just gives them something to look forward to. I think that a lot of people find value in, the public recognition. But in addition to that, I would like to just touch on what else, might you be awarding these folks with. I saw in Drew's pictures, Blue's pictures, you had we can touch on that. And then I know, Ilker, when we were talking about this, you had some really great insights from, I believe, Google and some other companies that you've seen. Do you mind kicking us off? And then we can kind of bounce around some other cool things that we've seen communities do.
I mean, the thing that I would like to keep as a common denominator is in pretty much everything that I am seeing, not only at Google, but I forgot one massive organization that I work for. I work for the London Olympic Games, of all things. So that was one of the greatest recognitions that anybody might have. So obviously those volunteers are community members and so forth, and the Olympics are coming to LA apparently, and to Paris before. So that's a great opportunity to see that you're working. But it's a very good and established system where the recognitions are very nicely organized. So let me start up with that. And when I was working at the London Olympic Games, all the volunteers, tens of thousands of them, received a letter from the Prime Minister in the UK. Obviously, he didn't write and sign them. They were all sort of copies sent over. But many of them were so enthused that they just had them framed, and they were just sharing them on social media, showing it to each other and so forth. So the common denominator for me is that the things that money cannot buy, obviously being recognized even as a copy letter from the Prime Minister or someone of that value, Blake, for example, would be something really, really cool. And that sort of recognition must be, in my opinion, is a good denominator for all the community efforts. And at Google, the one that I was talking to Cassie about was that we were sending the developers to Google's I/O conference every year, of course, before the coronavirus. And that is a great recognition. Why? Because it's a limited capacity event, and it is such in demand that the tickets are sold out every year. So as let's say someone with a lot of opportunities, you just cannot just go and buy a ticket, even if you had the money and you can travel. You just have to enter a ballot. But if you're a community member, if you performed every throughout the year, you would not only get a free pass to the event, but also you would meet the team members who actually built the platforms that you develop upon. So those are things that are things that money cannot buy. So this, I would say, certainly would be a great thing to do, or a great thing to consider for many community programs hosting awards, because then it actually coincides with or extends the fact that we're only offering experience in many in many instances, because let's face it, if you're a community member, if you're paid to be in that community, you're not a community member, you're a contractor. So that means that you are usually a volunteer when you're in a community. So it's important to recognize that right.
Awesome. Those are really cool examples. Does anyone else have thoughts? Or it can even be about trophies. Like, I guess, Drew, how did you guys go about the trophies and getting those, I guess, even just in the hands of everyone amid virtual land?
Yeah. have a physical space, so we were doing our best with a virtual stage or a virtual experience. And so what I did was I went kind of behind the scenes trying to find everybody's shipping information. So I wrote individual letters to everybody that were finalists, letting them know that, hey, congratulations, here's the award that you've been nominated for. You're a finalist. Here's what it's all about. Again, this is our very first time, so there's no precedent. There's a lot of kind of like surprise and delight, will, and which I think ended up working out really, really well. And people were just like shocked and really excited. And you know, who doesn't want to win an award? So like, it was really good news to have and to share. So people were very excited about that and very engaged with those emails. So I got everybody's address, and then I shipped them the award to arrive about a day before to give us a little bit of play if there are some complications with shipping. So it arrived the day before, and then I was getting messages on the community from people saying like, "Oh my God, I'm so excited!" and they're taking photos with their award, and it was a little dicey because I'm like, "Okay, you can't say anything, like we haven't even talked about this yet, but like I'm glad you got it. This is great." But don't share anything else on social. You can share it with me. I'm very excited for you. Uh, cool. Just to see the general reaction. So that's how we went about actually getting it into their hands. And then once the award ceremony kicked off, you know, I was starting to see stuff on LinkedIn or in our community. I was getting messages of, again, people holding up their award and just being over the moon. And then something else that we did, because you know, we don't have a massive conference like Google I/O. We do have something called Relate, but what we did was we created these badges to go on our community to just kind of recognize them as well. So not only did they get a physical award, but now they actually have badges on the community that describes the award that they won. And so when you're on there, you can kind of see like, oh, well, this person knows what they talked about. They, you know, they wrote the most user tips in the last year. I should probably follow that person. And then, you know, we also would be seeing those types of assets on LinkedIn and stuff like that to kind of get the message out there. So that we did a combination of the physical and digital kind of recognition.
Love it.
Yeah, we originally we went with trophies because it was a localized community and we were doing everything in person, and that just, you know, made a lot of sense. You throw a big event, you give the trophy out. Coronavirus had other ideas for us, so when we did a virtual one, we announced all the winners on a virtual call and then set up a pickup spot the following day or 2 days later, where they also got a few perks. I think they got like free coffee and cupcakes. We partnered with a local business as a pickup spot, so they were able to come grab their trophy, get another extra little perk, and you know, that was our workaround there. I will, you know, one of my happiest moments, I guess, one of the Yelpers who originally won an award invited me to like their, you know, I'll pass by their house and just say happy birthday, whatever. And when I got there, like they had their like Yelpies on display at their house, and it was like the most heartwarming, like sweetest moment ever. And they were just really proud of this award. So if you have the ability to give something physical, I think that is like the ultimate award that you can give. We do live in a virtual world now too, so translating that, you know, and Drew mentioned he did both, which that's what I aspire now to do, hopefully. Featuring that on their profile or on their whatever, you know, page, if they can have that virtual trophy, I think that would really mean a lot to folks. Obviously that comes with a little bit more development help and whatnot than just printing out a trophy and, you know, working with a company that's a contracted company. But yeah, that recognition is what I've really focused on, and with a global community becomes really hard to ship. So I started looking at shipping options, and one, there's some countries that we can't even ship to because there's embargoes and whatnot. There's some countries that if you ship something to somebody, they have to pay taxes on it. So it's like, hey, you won an award. Now you have to pay $20 US, which is like your monthly salary to like get this award from customs. So I don't think I'm going to end up doing physical trophies at Pexels. So it's really going to be focusing a lot on those virtual. We live in the world of NFTs now, so everything is virtual, and you want to feature your trophy, your virtual trophy case. So that's really what we're wrapping our heads around is what could that look like for next year for these virtual awards.
Awesome. Blake has some really good comments in the chat, and I would love for him to elaborate, if you don't mind, a little bit more on, like, I think you mentioned kind of like these assets, like the winners doing maybe like video interviews after the fact, and kind of having things that even the marketing team or other teams can kind of like package up, and essentially leveraging the awards after the fact, but things that you do need to kind of think of when you're planning the event for like what comes next, so that we're not just hosting the awards and walking away. Can you chat a little bit more about what you think is important to think about there?
Yeah, so just in terms of like the award experience, like if you've ever done one and it's like the National Lampoon's Vacation where you get to the Grand Canyon, you're there for like 2 seconds onto the next thing, and then you're like, uh-oh, I didn't take any photos of that, right? Or I want to share on LinkedIn, I don't have any assets to basically to do for that, or what does it look like when I share onto social? And so a lot of times if you leave the winners into the wild, they can do stuff maybe off brand or other stuff. And so with the winners having a whole like creative package of creative assets, photos and digital artwork, with if they're going to reshare like some of the trophies and stuff are tough to take photos of. So then we had like, what's the digital equivalent that they'd want to share online? It wasn't even like the physical award. It was like a digital certificate, and the digital certificate, the president of the company and so forth. So that got a little bit more play. And then they had opportunities for sharing in other ways. And then for the ceremony itself is like we're getting staff volunteers to like do like screen captures of individual moments, things like that. Or if you have like a private photo booth, virtual photo booth, I know Anne-Marie uses that a lot for the winners where they can decorate themselves and so forth for it. And then with each winner having like a package, like a Google folder with like screen captures of their win, photos of the award, digital certificates, some copy that they can reuse, just some brand stuff. So you're serving it up for a plate, like self-service. So then afterwards they can do stuff. And we would also typically book time for interviewing them, like capturing some of their stories, because it's a low touch way for content creation. You've got them in a great state, and so it's a great time to capture some videos, or because you're getting them pretty much fired up. And even some of like the global teams, like we try to get people into like a mothership for a headquarters. That's always challenging, especially now, right, with COVID. Like there's places we might have like an event, but some of them can't go to it, and we would have to work with like regional partners. And so like we had this one guy, Jens Michael, into our phrasing office. We got a videographer to tape like the whole day. So it was like a whole day they spent with the company, and the awards ceremony was just a small part of it. And it was also cool. We did like a Q&A with them after. For a lot of companies are like, we never get to talk to customers. So then it was another opportunity basically to do that. And then just kind of like the last part of it, like when the people win. So if Ochre Comms gets this great big award, there's like ceremonies you go to and you never hear from them again. Like I really loved working with Ochre, Cassie, Blue, but once I accepted, I didn't hear anything. And so then it's like, not only do we package up the assets for to readily reuse, then it's like typically we'd give them a gift basket or some type of note like, hey, thank you so much for that, because you want to keep that going, right? And figuring out essentially how to do it. So that's pretty much it. And then sometimes doing like a yearbook PDF where you have like a whole like yearbook. This is everything that went on, and then you print the winners inside of it with some additional like copy story that could be gated content. And one really quick story that I always forget about is when Holly Firestone was at Atlassian and they did their award show. one really cool thing they did is, like Holly said, everybody's a winner. Everybody gets a free Tesla. And she had put those little like Matchbox Tesla cars underneath like the audience's seat. So it was like not only like for like the categories, she worked in a little bitty like delight just for the audience themselves to get like this little toy Tesla. And people still talk about it to this day.
Awesome.
There's a very funny additional, story that I heard about which actually happened in the US, I think in the 80s or late 70s. There was a brand, a General Motors brand named Saturn. I don't know if any of you have actually owned one, or you probably know the car. We never got it in Europe, so we don't know. We just saw the pictures. So one thing that they did in the 70s was when they actually started. I mean, the cars. Let's face it, they were just average GM cars. Yeah, Drew's just posting a comment there. So what they wanted was to have some competitive advantage. They just wanted to treat all their customers as a community. So they instructed their salespeople to get to know their customers more when their birthdays were, when their kids went to college, when they were, I don't know, getting married, or something big happening in their lives, when they were moving around or something. So word has it that they were actually also putting out these lavish, let's say, ceremonies or big events for their customers. And once one particular batch of cars, they had a problem with the ignition, so they called all the cars in, so the equivalent of recall today. But then what they did is that they just hosted this massive picnic in this massive area, where they had a couple of thousand cars that were affected. They just called all their owners, and the owners were expecting the cars to be fixed while they were having the picnic, but brand new cars were waiting for them. So that actually prompted the community members to volunteer at car shows. They had badges saying, "Ask me why I bought a Saturn." So apparently, true or not, we know that Saturn actually was quite famous on this kind of thing. So when Blake was talking about everybody getting a Tesla, so these people, these folks have actually got a new car on their own. So whether this is cost effective or not, maybe not at these days, but it is certainly a good and interesting tactic. And I just think that some of the things, especially the NFTs and the digital goods that were just mentioned a moment ago, those look like to be the way to go, because they're all going to be becoming appreciating assets from now on as well.
We only have a few more minutes left, but kind of on that note, I'm wondering if there are any other products, partners, kind of out of the box or remarkable elements that you all have either incorporated yourself or work to incorporate in your ceremonies that would be good to touch on as some final takeaways. I think this is something that's always top of mind for everyone. We're all kind of getting fatigued in the virtual world, but then also kind of making a new splash back in the real life world. And yeah, things have changed a lot over the last couple of years, and we wouldn't be talking about NFTs, even a year ago, probably. So anything come to mind?
Yeah, I think on my side, just the two things is there's sometimes like having like a big surprise presenter, and that could be like somebody as simple as like a key staff member or VP over a certain area, or even like the CEO, that it's not announced, like those aha moments. What does it make sense? Because the award ceremony sounds so great, but when you're doing them, you realize like how monotonous and really boring they are. You're waiting for like, if you're one of like 50 or wherever you are, and it's kind of like, so getting in some big like surprise moments or surprise presenters, like where you can do it and keep it a secret. That's really great. And another interesting one that I've seen some people do is like when you win an award, similar to like what Blue was talking about, like your Hall of Fame category for other types of people, your legacy members, because at that point, legacy, that's like they've run out of things. They've done everything at your company. So what can you do? And some companies will actually have like winners clubs. And so like by winning an award or certain types of award categories, it unlocks you to being a part of a special winners club that has its own like program and events, or maybe like a dinner jacket or something else that they can do. But the only way to get into this little winners club is essentially to win this award. So it's similar to like a Hall of Fame, but it's where you kind of unlock this other type of achievement. So I thought those two things are pretty interesting.
I really like that, or both those ideas. Does anything else come to mind? Nope.
I
Awesome.
love the dinner jacket. I'm going to steal that.
Well, I think that we could probably talk for forever. I know I have more questions I would love to pick your brains about, but hopefully, if you're not already in the Slack CMX community, that's a great place to continue the conversation. And we'll also try to recap this. But like I said, there'll be a recording out. But if you do think of anything else, feel free to drop something in there and we can all chime in. I think most of us are members of that. And if not, it's free and easy to join. Are there any other final thoughts, comments, questions anyone wants to share? Audience members, feel free to chime in too if you need or want. Awesome. Well, huge thank you to Ilker, Blue, Blake, and Drew for joining me today. Thank you for those that tuned in. I hope you all got something out of it, and I will let you all continue to enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. See you again soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you. Bye.